Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dharmi Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Higher Self Mastery. I'm your host, Dharmi Schumacher. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I am going to share with you what would essentially be my journal entry around this time of the year. So a couple of weeks ago, I offered you some journal prompts and I went through the importance and the power of journaling as a tool to help you to reflect on your successes, your progress, also to celebrate what you have done and accomplished, but also to bring closure to what has already passed before you begin open new doors and new chapters and move forward. So in some ways, this is my reflection of 2025, some of the key highlights, the main themes, the main big challenges and topics that came up for me. And the reason I want to share it with you is for a multitude of reasons. If you are new to this journey, if journaling is something that you've only just begun to work with and maybe you're unsure about what you should be expecting from your results when you're writing and things like that, and you just really have a lot of doubts and uncertainty around it, this episode will definitely help you to give you some kind of structure and something to compare it to, but also just give you some kind of idea what you can do when you start to journal and do some of this reflective work. So for those of you who are new to reflective work, to journal prompts, where we look back essentially to see and extract the core themes, the threads, the lessons of life, which is what this is all about, right? What life should be about. Hopefully this episode is going to help you to get a little bit clearer about what this might look like for you as well once you start to do this more and more and become a little bit more practiced in it. The other thing is as well, if you're new to my podcast or you haven't worked with me directly or in one of my group programs yet, maybe you don't really know me. And I think it was like in the first 4 episodes or maybe the first 5 episodes of this podcast, I do share quite a bit about my background, my journey, and how I have arrived to the point where I am today to do this podcast, to be running this business. But a lot of those experiences that I have shared previously have been from my past, whether that be 10 years prior, 20 years prior, or even just the last few years. And today's share is current. It's about me navigating my life, my business in 2025. So I know how important it is when we listen to somebody on a podcast and we're tuning in because we are hoping to learn something from them. Maybe we see them as a teacher or a guide or a coach, somebody that we are looking to learn from and look up to as well, so to speak. It's really important that we feel a sense of connection and feel a sense of trust that they are walking the talk and living and breathing and doing this stuff for themselves. And it's not just something that they read and sell. But they are living, walking, talking examples of what they teach. I think that's really important, but also it helps us to connect and see that actually, and I've mentioned this before, this idea of a pedestal, that they are just human too. And life is messy for everybody. Nobody's got this polished, worked out version of life, no matter what it might look like from the outside to you. Everyone's life is messy. And it's full of ups and downs all the time. That is just what life is. No, as soon as you have reached a high, expect to be experiencing a low as well in some area of your life. And that's not a bad thing. That is just life being life. And our job is to learn how to ride that wave, how to ride that journey with grace and with surrender. So when I share with you my challenges and experiences and successes and wins and just everything, the main highlights of 2025 for me, you will be able to see that I too am just on my journey, and there is no such thing as some of us being ahead or some of us being behind. We're each on our own unique journey. There's no right or wrong in terms of where we are. We are exactly where we need to be. And that is really important. Again, no matter, I think I've been on this spiritual path consciously for now 26 years and maybe even a bit longer. And it's only until very, very recently that I've stopped comparing where I am to where other people are on this spiritual awareness path. And it's hard because we as humans, we will look at ourselves and say, am I doing something wrong? Maybe I'm not doing it right. Something's not wrong. Something's not right with me, or I don't have access to that, or maybe this is not the right path for me, or I'm not cut out for this. Like, there's always this comparison to what we see on the outside, ever more so now with social media than before. But it's always existed. It's just part of our human nature. So let this be an example that even though I have been on this path quite a long time now, when I say it like that, 26 years, core blimey, that's a really long time. And I'm still learning new things and I'm still figuring things out. So be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace if you've only just been doing this for a little while. And even if you have been doing it for 20 years, give yourself some grace, right? So that's another reason for sharing this story with you as well, that nobody's actually got it figured out. Don't put anybody up on a pedestal. There's no right or wrong. You're not behind or ahead. There's also this, I want to say unfortunate, but it's just part of the process. And so it's not unfortunate. It's very much part of the path that we have to learn and grow and move through. But people who are on this spiritual path will at some point get to a level in their awareness where they will start to feel self-righteous, that they are better than other people. Maybe you've experienced this. Maybe you've experienced other people treating you in this way. I know I've definitely been there, where I've looked at other people and thought, I know more than you, or I'm a little bit better than you because I have greater awareness. And it's just part of the process. It's part of the journey that we need to transcend beyond. And so when we are on this spiritual path, I think it's really important to constantly remind ourselves that, hey, listen, you haven't got it all figured out. No one's really got it all figured out. Come down from your high horse. And because, like I said, as soon as you are sort of flying high in the sky with some of those successes and celebrations and wins, just as quickly life will give you challenges to help you grow again. And the only way we grow is by dropping us back down again, by throwing us to the bottom. So then we have to learn to climb back up, right? That's how this works. The resistance of climbing up, the effort, the hard work of climbing up is what makes us bigger, better people. And that's what helps us to expand as in our awareness. It's what helps us to return home to who we really are. So those are some of the reasons why I'm going to share my end of year 2025 journal prompts or reflections with you. They're not specific questions. I didn't go through any specific questions for this episode. I just really sat and asked myself the one overall question, which was, which are the core themes? What are my main lessons that came up for me, or the the things that I remember the most that really stand out for me, good or difficult, whatever they were. Okay, so the biggest one by far was the shift in my parenting for me. So around mid-June to about mid-September, so about 3 months, I pretty much spent every single day crying my eyes out at the end of the day because I was faced with the reality that my baby girl was struggling, that she was changing, she was growing, and everything that I had learnt up until that point in my 10 years of being a mother, everything that I thought I had honed in and learnt and about her and how to be a good mum was thrown out the window. Nothing was working. I wasn't able to connect with her. I wasn't able to communicate with her. I just wasn't getting through, and the situation was just getting more and more out of control. And it was just chaos. And it was every single day was full of resentment and frustration and anger and screaming and shouting and hurt and pain and sadness for everybody in the family. And we all felt at a loss with what was going on at the time. And so at the end of every single day, I was like crying my eyes out from exhaustion, but also just feeling like really, really helpless and feeling at a complete loss to what to do. It was about 3 weeks or so into this phase when I realized, oh, okay, this is not just a mini phase that's going to pass on by. Like, this is something bigger. This is here to stick around. And then I accepted that. And then another week or two, like well into sort of July, end of July, I was sort of like, okay, so what is this really about? What am I really being asked to do here? And I'm being asked to rub the slate clean and rewrite everything that I know about parenting. I need to throw everything out the window and start again as if she is a brand new child, as if I am a brand new parent, and put everything that I've previously used and done that has worked, just set it all to one side and just start from scratch. And that was really hard, not just because it's in your habitual patterns and behaviors in what you say and what you do. So you're constantly having to interrupt yourself every time you speak or you behave. And of course, you don't do that. It automatically comes out. So there's still this resistance and tugging and toing and froing. But it was just full on. And I knew, thank goodness, because I have been doing this work for such a long time, that I recognized what this was. And I recognized that, okay, I have been flying pretty high in the early months of 2025. 2025 started off absolutely cracking for me. It was so good, so good. And it just got better and better and better. And I'm talking more in terms of my vocation and career, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. So when this happened, come summertime, it was a shock to my system because I was so preoccupied with floating up in the cloud. But then at the same time, because I've been here before and I recognized it for what it is, I was like, okay, it's time to come down now. It's time for another challenge. All right. And it wasn't a challenge in my business. It's a challenge as a parent in my relationship with my daughter. And so very quickly, I was able to say, all right, what's the lesson in this? What's the lesson through the tears, through the frustration, through the shouting, through everything? It was like, what's the lesson in this? What's the lesson in this? How can I be a better mother? How can I do things differently? Because what I'm currently doing is clearly not working. So what do I need to change in myself? And there began the work of reparenting. And that, I would say, was the biggest thing that stands out for me in my life, because up until this year, parenting has come pretty easy to me, I would say. Of course, there's challenges. Of course, there are. And she's by no means an easy child. But it comes quite naturally and comes quite easily to me. So I was really shaken and, yeah, surprised by this particular lesson. And my goodness, the things that came up for me, it was about learning. I always considered myself a really patient person. This showed me that I am not as patient as I thought, and there is a lot more work to be done there. I practice meditation, I practice breath work, I teach it. This showed me I need to practice it a lot more than I currently do, because those are those grounding tools, and without them, this is all going to go to shit. And I need to be able to do that so I can regulate my nervous system every single day. I need to be that steady rock while she is the whirlwind that goes around me as she navigates her hormones. She's a tween, right? So she's navigating all her hormones. So I have to be that steady rock that doesn't lose my balance, right? And stays calm. So I was learning so much about me, things that I thought that I would have said that I was quite good at. I realized that I have to take those to another level completely. So that was the big one. The next one was, I said that my 2025 started off really on a high and just got really, really better and better and better. And I'm talking in terms of my career, my vocation. So 2025 was a year where I really manifested and brought to life and enjoyed the fruits of seeds that I had planted about 5 years prior. Things that were in my original vision, in my original dream when I began this particular journey as a coach. And I finally saw a lot of those come to life this year, and that brought me so much expansion, so much joy. And all of those experiences far superseded any of my expectations, in terms of how fulfilling they were. So that was massive. I hit some massive milestones this year in my career, in my business. A lot of that was to do with speaking live, doing live public speaking engagements, but also the environments and where I was doing these as well. So I'd previously, in that vision 5 years ago, and even before that, going to festivals has always been something it's so close to my heart. It's something that I enjoy doing and want as part of my life every single year. And I don't just mean to go to one festival as a customer and then that's it. And then that's like a little holiday and that's done. That's nice. It is nice. But to really be in that community, to really be a part of it. But 5 years ago, when I started this business, when I put that down and it came through for me in my vision, in my dream, I sort of quietly set it aside because my brain and my logical brain started coming in and saying, yeah, but that's not where your clients are. That's not going to help you to grow your business. So you shouldn't be wasting time there. That should be left for just your personal use and enjoyment. So yeah, Dharmi, go to those festivals, go to as many festivals as you like, but just to enjoy them. That is separate from your career. And what I proved to myself was that actually that's not true at all. Not only were all of my public speaking events at festivals this year, but they absolutely were in front of my ideal client. They absolutely were in front of my tribe, my people, and I was delivering value to people who want to learn this, who want to hear this, who are on this path. And that just lit me up to be able to share what I do face to face, there's no words that I can really express and use that describe that feeling for me, because when I started my business, it was during COVID lockdown and everything was going online. And it kind of suited me to go online as well, because I do have a vision of being global. I do have a vision of being being able to work remotely from anywhere in the world, because travel is a massive part of my dreams. It's one of my highest values. I'm a Sagittarian. I'm adventurous. I love to travel. And I haven't traveled in such a long time. So the idea of providing a service all online was perfect, because it meant I could be absolutely anywhere. As long as I've got internet connection, I can work and serve my clients from absolutely anywhere. So I went all in with the online route, even though in the vision, I wanted, and I said, and I wrote down that I want to be at festivals. I want to be on a stage. I want to be in front of people. Now, there's two things that were at play here. The online world and offering a product or a service online is something I had never previously done before. So it was completely unfamiliar. Yes, there was fear around that, but I was also, without having ever experienced it before, I was also like, well, I won't know if I like it or if it works for me until I try it, which is fair, right? But also the fear of actually just going and trying to take my business in person, that fear was so powerful and so big that I opted to naturally. I went for something that was still scary, but not as scary, even though the in-person work was really where my heart was at. That's what really made me feel expansive. Now that's not to say it was all for nothing. There's no way that I would have been able to do what I did this year. The reason it's taken me 5 years to get to this point is because even though I wanted it, I was not ready to do it. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the ability to hold it. So if I had bookings, 6, 7, 8 bookings in that first year of my business to go and speak live in person in front of hundreds of people, I probably would have absolutely cacked myself and would have been pouring with sweat and maybe peed my pants a little bit. And who knows what the delivery would have been like. It certainly would not have been professional. It certainly would not have been as good as it has been this year. Because all of the online work that I have done, I have had to speak like this, right? In front of a camera, in front of people, whether it's on a live webinar, and I've got little faces that I'm looking at across through the screen on Zoom, or just talking into a camera myself, right? To no one in particular just yet. Even that was terrifying in the beginning. I remember when I had to do my very first webinar, and it was just like a handful of my closest friends were jumping on. It was a trial, like a rehearsal, if you like. So to work out, smooth out any tech stuff. And also just they were there for moral support to make sure they could log in. And, so there was actually real people there. All of my closest friends who want nothing but what I was doing to be successful for me. And they're in full support and not there to judge me in any way whatsoever. I almost didn't switch on the camera, and I almost messaged them or to say, sorry, I can't do this. I'm not coming on live, right? I was that petrified. I was frozen. I was almost like almost having a panic attack. And that's how frightened I was. And these are in front of people that I know and love, and who love me and only want the best for me. And thereafter, I overcame that hurdle, and thereafter I started doing Facebook Lives. But even then, it was like I'd be so self-conscious. Sometimes I would re-record them, not the lives, obviously, but some of the other videos that I put out. Or it would take me ages to do the live, and I'd think about this. And I had to learn so much, not just about my confidence in speaking, not just my confidence in my authority as an expert in my field, but just all the tech stuff as well. And so everything that I have learned over the last 5 years trying to grow my business online and delivering courses and programs online, whether that's being group programs or one-to-one coaching, all of the different social media platforms that I've operated and learned and worked. None of that has gone to waste because it has all helped me to arrive to the point where I am today, which finally in 2025 saw me where I really wanted to be. And again, it was just the beginning of it was just those first baby steps of the next phase. And that was in-person live events, whether that's me standing on a stage, delivering a talk or facilitating a workshop. Because ultimately I want to hold my own retreats and have other guests come and join us and join my clients and serve them. So that was massive. I did that. That began back in May. One of the other things with, as I mentioned, like I want to be able to work remotely. And I always had this belief that if I'm going to do in-person events, well, I'm then growing and putting all my energy into growing a community in certain geographical locations, right? And then if I do choose to move, well, then I lose that. And that's not untrue. To some degree, yes, that may be the case. But I also sort of just put this general blanket of in-person work will restrict my ability to travel, to have the adventure that I desire. And actually, I was proven wrong with that because my first speaking engagement of this year was actually in Cyprus. I then went on to Scotland and then I traveled all around England as well to deliver talks locally, nationally. So quite the opposite. I actually got out of the office here, out of the home office, and I was out there in the world traveling, going to new places, new locations, meeting new people, and doing all the things that I love. So that was massive in terms of my own personal successes, massive milestones that I achieved that I am incredibly proud of, and that brought me so much joy and confirmed that is indeed the direction that I want to move in. That was also, there was another thread that was running throughout 2025 for me. So it wasn't any certain big events or moments, but more of a continuous knowing that was just making itself aware to me throughout the year. Every time I sat to do the inner work, shadow work, inner child work, revisit my visions, check in on my manifestations, like all of that work, as I continue to do that all the way from, I'd say, from January, all the way to the end of the year, the one continuous theme was to go back to my original vision, to go back to many of the things that I wanted, that I said I wanted 5 years ago, but even before that as well. So going to Cyprus was not just massive for a business milestone, a career milestone for me. It was also a huge milestone personally as well. It was the first time that I spent that much amount of time away from my daughter since having her. I've only ever been away from her for a night or 2 nights at the most. Before that, she's a real mum's girl. She doesn't like being separated from me. I have to admit still probably have like some control issues that I'm working through, like, but how will they manage and what will happen and will they be okay, like leaving her here at home and I'm not here, and just leaving my husband to navigate work and school and everything else, like will they be okay? And I had to really let go and surrender and be like, do you want to go to Cyprus for this amazing opportunity to go and serve people with your expertise? Or are you just going to clutch on to the idea and make excuses why you can't go and say that the family's going to fall apart if you're not here? Obviously, that's not true. So stop with the charade and, just let it go, let the control grow and let the control go. And what will be. They'll survive. Worst case scenario, it might be messy when I come back, or it may not be the way that I would choose to do it, but they will be fine, right? And everything was more than fine. And so going away to Cyprus for that week on my own was so big for me as well, a milestone in my own personal growth since becoming mum, because it was the first time that my nervous system was able to just calm down and reset and regulate, because I didn't have to switch constantly. Anyone who's a parent out there will know, or a carer, that you're always on high alert. Even if you have time to yourself, then you're like, oh, okay, then you switch your brain back on to be into parents mode. But to really allow your nervous system to decompress slowly in nature, in the most healing environment. It was a festival, but it was more like a retreat, because it was just so nurturing and so healing if you wanted it to be. The opportunity was there, and I certainly did want it to be. I swam in the sea every single day. I attended the most gorgeous workshops, like embodied practices of dance and movement, and then energy work. And oh, it's just out of this world, that by day 4, I was just not even on this planet. I was like somewhere up there in the cosmos, orbiting. But what also came with that, because I finally, my nervous system had the opportunity to decompress, and I was able to unplug from the world of the everyday life, and was finally able to just move slowly and be in myself, was that I was able to finally really, really connect deeply with myself again, to rediscover who I was after all these years, not who I thought I was, but who I really was, to relearn about myself. And what I learned was surprising on one level, and beautiful as well, to have those realizations. And what I discovered was that the Dharmi that existed 20 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, the Dharmi that I thought that no longer existed, that was an old part of me, an identity that I just could not resonate with, because I was so disconnected with, actually was still at the core of who I am. And it was just the fact that I had paused and put things on hold, made some decisions around marriage, decisions around previous businesses, decisions around having my child, that just took me off course a little bit, and maybe I had to prioritize other things in my life. Choices were different. And now that those things were starting to settle once again, it was beautiful to see that actually who I was 20, 25 years ago is still very, very much at the core of who I am today. And all of those things still burn so brightly inside of me. And so Cyprus was a beautiful gift to myself in terms of rediscovering and reconnecting with who I am, which has helped me to know myself better, to know who I am in my authentic self, which is then only going to serve me moving forward, because now what I create hopefully won't be so clouded by the ifs and the shoulds and the fears, but more from that place of, this is what I truly desire. So that was a massive milestone for separate reasons in itself, not to mention that it was the first speaking engagement that I did in public, face to face, and that felt amazing. And the feedback that I got was amazing. And speaking to people afterwards as well, because it's not one of those hurried little day events where you go in a conference center and you deliver a talk and everyone just claps for you and thanks you maybe, and there's like 2 minutes for them to come and shake your hand at the end, which is beautiful in itself, of course it is, but then they rush off to the next workshop or rush off to the next talk or whatever it is, and then the day's over and everyone's gone. It was an environment where, yes, there was another workshop afterwards, straight afterwards, but we were all living and eating and sleeping on that little piece of land, on that beautiful sacred piece of land. So they would catch me at dinner time, or they'd catch me the next day over breakfast or on the beach. These conversations would still continue and deepen. And there was so much richness that came out of that time in Cyprus for me personally, but also the mirror that was held up to me in terms of my authority and expertise and what I really have in terms of what value I really have to offer people. And that was really humbling, and I was very grateful for that as well. By going to all of these festivals this year, the other thing that really came through for me, which I didn't realize that I was craving and needed and was lacking in my life, was my tribe. I think I did a post on this earlier in the year. I may have even did a podcast episode on it. I'm not sure. But by attending and working at these festivals, at the right festivals, I connected with others, brothers and sisters, that just immediately there was these soul connections. Some of them have become beautiful friendships. Some of them were fleeting and passing, but they were nonetheless genuine and real and nurturing. And that's what I realized. So community became a big theme for me as well this year. I have my community of gorgeous sisters that are quite local to me. I've mentioned them before, I'm sure. And they have helped me to move through the sister wounds, and they support me more on a day-to-day basis. But what was different about this community was, and that's what's beautiful, is that you can have more than one community. And I think it's important to have more than one community because you share different ideas with each different community, right? But this is a community of brothers and sisters, so the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that was really important to have that presence and that energy in my life this year as well. So connection and community was a big theme for me as well. Something that I haven't done in decades, or in quite the way that I felt it this year. So that was a big part of 2025 for me, which I'm so grateful for. Not only to have experienced it and to have these new connections in my life, but to be reminded of how important it is to me as well. 2025 has also been my most witchiest year. So at the beginning of each year, I draw a animal medicine card. And at the beginning of this year, 2025, my medicine animal card was the owl. Now, most people, including myself, when I see the owl, I think wisdom. And I was like, oh, okay, this is great. And that's true. There is the wisdom that comes with it, but it's much more than that, which I learned. The owl also represents magic, intuition. And so, I took it off. I had it on earlier. I had my little owl. So what I'll do is I'll pick up, as soon as I know what my animal medicine is, or my medicine animal for the year is, I will try and get pictures or jewelry or something and keep as many representations and reminders of that particular animal around me. So then it's at the forefront of my mind, and their teachings, their lessons are at the forefront of my mind. And definitely 2025 has been my witchiest year yet. I went through most of 2025 identifying as a witch. I am starting to loosen my grip on that particular identity and label, because I feel like witch has more of a derogatory connotation. And when I think of my witchiness, it's actually really just a woman who is deeply connected with her intuition, a woman who is deeply in touch with nature, with earth magic, with the planets, with the elements, with the weather, with each other, right? With energy. That is what witchiness is to me. And so I'm starting to feel like I want to lose that label as well, quite soon. But sometimes I still use it just to help people better understand what I'm trying to say. And the 2024, I was working with the archetype of the Queen, and that was like the beginning of my path along deepening my path of the divine feminine, which was very new for me. And as I moved through 2024 and working with the archetype of the Queen, I then switched and went deeper and started working with the goddess archetype this year. And that work with, I bring this in the same conversation and put it in the same breath because to me, they are not separate. Deepening your wisdom and your knowing of your divine feminine is to become more witchy, because that's what it is. And this year, my absolute favorite goddess, like she just spoke to me. I worked at one point, I worked with different goddesses, but when I got to her, there was just this, like, just like a magnet to my heart just went, like, she's the one. She's the one for me right now. And it's the goddess, the Greek goddess, Hecate, who is the goddess of the underworld, of crossroads, of intuition, of magic. So it made perfect sense. So I've really worked very, very closely with the Hecate goddess archetype, with her. Close to my heart, close in here in the Ajna, the third eye, which is where she is based as well. So, yeah, 2025 has been incredibly, beautifully feminine and wild and witchy for me as well. So that was a big theme for me. Then another big thing and a massive curveball. So at the end, I explained how I have had these massive celebrations and wins in my career. That was all the way from the beginning of the year to the end of summer into September. And then there was a massive curveball. But before I go into that curveball, like I had all this energy and all these ideas for products and offers that I was going to put out there to my clients, and things that I wanted to do, collaborations and in-person events and all this energy, right? So much energy for what I wanted to create next and so much excitement to do that. But then came the curveball, which was unexpected because it wasn't in conversation for quite some time. And that was withdrawing my daughter from school and beginning to homeschool her. So I was now then asked to reprioritize my values, like, how are you going to spend your time, Dharmi? Where are you going to spend most of your time and most of your energy? And of course, without any hesitation, that is, of course, my daughter. So I've had to I didn't have to, I chose to scale my business right back to bare basics, bare skeleton. And honestly, this podcast is all I do in my business right now. It's not what I had planned for the autumn of 2025 or the winter of 2025, but it is what I ended up doing. And I made peace with that as well. Because to do both, to push through and have these new offers and new creative ideas with the business and to continue with that, and to bring on such a huge new responsibility of homeschooling my daughter, if I tried to juggle both of those, I wouldn't have enjoyed either. I would have burnt myself out. I would have been in ill health, and I wouldn't have been a great parent or a great homeschooling teacher, and I wouldn't have been showing up in my best light either in my work. So the things that I'd be creating in my business would probably not be very successful because all of my vibration and joy would not have been behind it. So for me, in this season of my life, I know better than to try and take on too much. And it's just like, okay, what gives? well, the business gives then. I'm not shutting it down. I'm not putting it away. It just has to be scaled right back. And for me, what that means is to only show up and do this podcast each week. And that might not sound like a lot, but that's still a lot. It's as much as I can do. And I'm glad I made that decision, because when I record these episodes, when I do the work around it, I'm here, right? I'm really here. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I want to. And there's still enthusiasm and joy when I'm creating this work and putting it out. I hope you can feel that when you hear me or see me as you tune into the episodes. So that was massive. That was a huge part of 2025 as well. We're still very much navigating that, still sort of just halfway through that journey, so to speak. And that in itself as well, again, connected to the parenting things that I had to learn in summer. I've really been asked to up level myself, and the academic side of things is the least of my worries. It's everything else that's the most challenging. Like, I didn't realize that I can lose my temper so much so quickly. I mentioned, the patience part of it. Well, clearly not as patient as I thought. Learning to, the relationship dynamics of being mum and daughter, and then teacher and student, and shifting between that. And also her being in my pocket all the time from the moment she wakes up to the moment she goes to sleep. If anyone knows me out there, knows that I need my own space. I need alone time. It's so vital to my well-being. I think it's true for everyone, but some of us need it more than others. And I definitely have always been one of those people where I love just being on my own. And if I don't get that daily dose, I'm not a nice person to be around. You don't really want to be around me. But it's a non-negotiable that I will, at whatever cost, if that means I wait until everyone's gone to sleep, until the house is quiet, then I just stay up quietly for myself for an hour or hour and a half or something like that. If it means compromising my sleep a little bit, then that's what I do. But I need my alone time. So to now have her here at home all of the time, whoa, that's a lot. And so we're navigating that as well, and learning how to, finding ways to make that work for everybody as well. So that was big. That was a big one for 2025, right at the end there, snuck in there, and was very unexpected as well. And I want to say, doing all of this as I'm also navigating perimenopause as well, without any assistance of HRT. I don't have any intentions of going on any HRT. I might change my mind later on, but at the moment I don't. I have played around with some supplements to help me, mostly mushroom supplements to help my energy, help my focus, clarity, and things like that. Now, either things are just shifting and changing, and that's just not working right now, but also I have sort of stopped a lot of those supplements as well. And so I've been navigating life in 2025. That's the business, the homeschooling, the parenting, like all of those things, and other relationships as well, and my own health and how I feel about myself, and all of that while navigating perimenopause as well. So there's been a lot of brain fog. Sometimes I can be in a meeting with a potential expert and discussing a collaboration for the future, and I'm just drawing blank. Just sitting there and just having to apologize and say, I'm really sorry, like I've just drawn a complete blank. Sometimes I've done that while recording as well, and then I've had to start again. But the rage has been a big one as well. I think the squeeze, I've definitely been feeling that squeeze. And so the rage that can come during perimenopause has been the hardest part for me, I think, because I would never have said that I'm an angry person before, and now I can just erupt. And I've had to have some really honest conversations with my daughter and say, I'm really sorry. It's not okay for me to shout like that. And I'm really sorry that I did shout. So a lot of this comes up during the homeschooling moments, when I'm really feeling like, oh my gosh, like it's so new and we don't know what we're doing and we're still fumbling our way through things. And then there isn't the space to just be able to switch off and take a breath and, all of those things. But also then the opportunity within that to turn around after I apologized and say to her, look, just like you're navigating your hormones, she's a tween, she's going through puberty. Mama's also going through her hormonal changes as well on the other side, or on the other end of life. And that's not an excuse. That doesn't mean it's okay. And I shouldn't behave that way. And nor should you ever allow people to speak to you in that way. However, this is what's just going on. So I'm a little bit less in control of my emotions or how I may react sometimes. And I'm trying really, really hard to not let it come out in the wrong ways, right? To manage it in a more healthy way. So some really lovely, open, honest conversations have come out as a result of those as well. But it's just made the roller coaster ride a little bit more bumpy with a few more loop-de-loops in there as well, right? The other thing that when I was reflecting back on 2025, I realized was that I was finally able to close a chapter on some grieving that I was doing. And more often than not, when people mention grieving, we think about losing somebody because they've departed this world, they've departed this life. But grieving is so much more than that on so many different levels. There's what I call for the purposes of the conversation today, I will call big letter G grieving and little letter G grieving. And I would say death is probably a big letter G grieving. And most of the other things are a little letter G grieving, and everything in between, right? On a sliding scale, because it's not the same for anyone. And I had one of my best friends a couple of years ago, suddenly out of nowhere, just decide to become estranged. And I still to this day do not know why. Initially, I think I did what most people would do, which was to reach out to find out what was wrong. I apologized. I profusely apologized for anything that I might have done to offend him. Because I didn't want to lose this friendship. He means too much to me and I love him and I care for him. But it started to become obvious that he had no intentions of maintaining any kind of friendship, and whatever was going on, it was not an open conversation, and he just completely shut me out. And that was hard because this is, even though you know it, you don't want to believe it or accept it, right? Just like you don't want to accept that everyone's going to die one day and at some point they're all going to leave your life sooner or later. And in the same way, he left my life. I just assumed he would be my friend well into my 70s and my 80s and we'd still be sitting around chatting, drinking cups of tea, when we were all wrinkly, old and grey. But the friendship suddenly came to an abrupt end. And every time I thought of him, like my whole heart and my chest would just contract and I would choke up. And that's how painful it was. That's how much sadness it brought me. That's how much pain it brought me. And I couldn't speak about it and I couldn't process it. And that went on for a long time until eventually about maybe 9 months ago or so, maybe less, thereabouts, I can't say for sure. I accepted that, okay, he's gone. He's gone, it's come to an end, Dharmi, and you've got to just let it go, surrender, just give it up. Stop trying to clutch onto something that was beautiful that once existed because it no longer exists. If it comes back, it comes back. But you've got to learn to let it go. You've got to learn to let him go. And that didn't stop the tears. That didn't stop the pain. But what I did do is allow myself the space to grieve. I allowed the space for my emotions to come through, to flow, the anger, the pain, the sadness, everything in between. And at some point earlier this year, I remember thinking about him, and instead of feeling that contraction, I was able to remember him with maybe joy, but certainly a neutral place. And that was when I realized, I was like, aha, I think I'm finished grieving. I think I'm finished grieving. And that's so important as well, that we give ourselves the space to grieve. It could be grieving a new relationship that maybe you've started, whether that's platonic and it's just a friendship, or whether it's romantic. Maybe you've poured yourself, your time, your energy, your hopes, your wishes into this person, and it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to or had hoped it would. And maybe you've only known that person for like 8 months or something. So it's still quite new, but it's still going to be painful. So it would be like a little letter G grieving, but give yourself space to feel your emotions and process it all, right? Give yourself time to grieve it. It could be grieving for a project, right? That's not silly. If maybe you've poured all your time and your energy into a project and had a hope for what the expectation might be, the results might be, but it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Of course, you're going to redo it or try things a different way and move on and whatever, but also give yourself the space to, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel disappointed. Give yourself a moment to pause and feel those emotions. Let them move through you before you go on to the next thing. Grieving is so, so important because it allows us to flush things out rather than holding them in our body where they start to become toxic and poisonous. We allow them to move through, and then once we allow it to move through, there's space for the next chapter. There's space for new things to come in and service that will be better aligned for us, right? And we have to have that full trust. And I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation, because you might be listening and thinking, well, that's all fair and well, Dharmi. Like, yeah, you had some challenging moments and some difficult moments, but you also had some really great moments as well. But I've just had a really, really tough 2025. And I know a lot of people have had a really challenging year. And if you are that person who are in many ways glad to see the back of this year, glad to see this year come to an end, then I want to invite you to surrender it all. Give it up to the universe. Remember, it has a plan. Of course, you are the creator of your reality. You have a say in what you manifest, what you create, and what is ahead for you. But there is also, you co-create that with a bigger plan, what your soul already agreed to. So just trust that process. Trust the journey is for you. Surrender it all up to the universe and ask, what were these lessons for? What are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to teach me that I did not see, so that I don't have to experience this again? What is it that I have to do differently? And move into 2026 slowly. Now, I still mark New Year's Eve in my own witchy ritual ways. I will definitely be sitting down either with the family or on my own with my medicine cards. I will meditate. I will light a candle. I will sit in some kind of ritual. But I think I do this more out of habit, because I've always, my whole life, followed the Gregorian calendar and celebrated New Year's Eve. And now my daughter's getting a little bit older. She's like, what are we doing for New Year's? So she feels like she wants to mark it. I haven't fully converted her over to the witchy ways just yet. She's still a little mini witch in the making. But I don't really see it as the beginning of my new year. But I still celebrate it because I think it's really important to have lots of different markers throughout the year where we stop and pause and reflect, whatever the reason is, whatever causes us to stop, to pause and reflect is a good reason. Sorry, it's a good way to just make sure we do it, right? But remember, we are still in the middle of winter. So don't go rushing out there into 2026 with full charge, full energy. I doubt many people even have the energy. Most people I've spoken to today alone have been expressing how exhausted they still are. So listen to your body. Move into 2026 quietly, in stillness, with your most of your energy and attention focused inwards. Still the time for seeding. It's still the time for dreaming. It's still the time for visioning. It's not time for like being out there and being crazy and doing things and making things happen. That time is not now, right? And if that's what you've always done, just try and listen to your body. What does it really feel like? What is your body really saying to you? What do you really want? What feels right? Take lead from nature. Nature is not suddenly going to burst into blossom and spring on the 1st of January. It's not, because it's not ready. It's not time to do that. So move into January slowly. Still take time to seed your dreams and get clearer on things. Finish off your reflection work. Put a full stop on 2025. Bring forward all your successes and your celebrations on all the things that are going to help you to move closer to your dreams, that are going to make you be a better person. Bring them forward. Everything else, leave it behind. Say thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the challenges. I hear you. I see you. I am not carrying you forward. And close the door on it before you open that next door. So take time for this. If you are listening to this on New Year's Eve, then I wish that it is everything you want it to be, everything that you need it to be for your highest and greatest good, whatever that looks like for you. Now, I shared some big topics, and there are many more. I can't sit here all day and talk about them all. But I hope that by sharing my story, sharing my reflections, that it's going to help you to maybe go deeper with your own reflections as well. Maybe approach it, or maybe you did the journal prompts from a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to help you to expand a little bit more about that. But what I hope you got from listening to my shares is that there's not an instruction manual laid out for some people and not for others. Everyone is doing life in the best way that they can, and we just fumble our way through it. And your only guide is your inner guide, your intuition, that expansive feeling, that joy, that fulfillment. That is your only guide. So it's so important to do the work to get to know yourself, because the more you get to know it, the more you follow it, and more you start to live life in alignment with your authentic self, with what's aligned for you, then the less bumps you will experience, right? And even when those bumps come, you'll just be able to ride them with a smile on your face. Because when we surrender and we accept that is just what life is, that is when we are able to move through life and enjoy every moment of it and see it for what it really is, the growth that is taking place in all of the experiences. It's when we try to control or resist and make things happen the way we want them to happen, is when we start to create and feel pain. Right. Thank you, my lovelies, for tuning in. I wish you all the best for 2026. I will see you in the new year. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.